I am excited to welcome everybody back. For those of you who have been here in the weeks past, thank you for coming back. That sends us a very strong signal that you're enjoying this, appreciating this. Also, we've gotten some really nice emails from attendees about the past events and how helpful it's been, whether it's to learn something specific or just to have something in your day where you're connecting with other folks, other business folks. Adding a little bit of structure and support in your day has been super helpful. I'm glad that you're back. We've got an awesome talk today. A longtime friend of mine, Rob Williams, is here to join us. Rob runs a website called Folio. I'll let him explain what that is and what he does, but it is very relevant to the topic today, and a topic that's been on everybody's mind, which is where to find clients. And I know that a lot of folks across lots of industries are experiencing challenges now, although I think back to the Philly Freelance Fest back in January, and when we surveyed the audience, the biggest thing people wanted to learn how to get better at, do more of, be more systematic about, waste less time doing is finding clients. So the challenge of finding clients is prevalent for freelancers. It is part of the job. Most people don't like doing it, so if that's you, don't worry, you're not alone. But I think now there's another flavor to this, and that in some cases, folks, the way you found clients in the past isn't working anymore, or the clients that you're used to finding aren't buying because their industry has been severely impacted by all the lockdown and however it's affected their business. So I was excited that Rob said yes in particular because he's got a really interesting lens into the world of companies hiring freelancers through the business that he runs, Folio. When I first reached out, one of the first things he said to me was that in some cases things are actually looking better. More freelancers are being hired. So I'm excited for him to share those insights from inside the view and be able to also show us, actually demonstrate some of the techniques that he uses that you can then use to go out on the internet, find potential clients, reach out to them, and drum up that business that I think a lot of us would really benefit from. And obviously, these are things that will benefit us long beyond the current status of quarantine and running a business in quarantine. Before we switch over to the talk from Rob, a couple of quick things. We will have some time for Q&A at the end, so we'll be running questions in the chat room. We'll come back to that at the end. The last thing is, if you do have a question along the way, you can drop that in the chat room. We want to make sure folks are staying muted, unless Rob specifically asks you to come on screen, in which case you can use the raise hand feature. If you're new to that, if you click on the participants button also down below, that brings up a little window, shows you everyone who's here, and at the bottom of that there is a raise hand button. You can use that to show that you've got something you'd like to ask or share. Without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Rob Williams, joining us from sunny Southern California. How you doing today, Rob?
Good, Alex. Thank you.
Glad you're here. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your
Sure.
business and say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with this community, and take it away.
Thanks, man. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to do this. So I think you mentioned I run a business that's actually called a referral newsletter. It's called Folio, FOLYO.me. And so what we do is we send out freelance jobs and freelance referrals, and not just freelance, but also agency referrals to, this group of a newsletter. There's about 9,000 people on it right now. And there's a free version where you get like one or two a week. And then there's the paid version where you upgrade and you get 10x that. And it's really for product design agencies and product design freelancers. And for the most of the time since I've launched it, it's just been me finding gigs for these people. So I've done it mostly myself, and there's been thousands of people on the newsletter. And really, based on on the survey research I've done and surveying my customers that I've done, it generates millions of dollars in client revenue every year since we launched. And so nothing I'm doing for this newsletter is like, some secret sauce. I mean, there is some stuff that I've kind of finely tuned and whatever, but really anybody could kind of develop these processes for themselves using a few simple tools. That's all I really use. Most of them are free. So that's kind of what I would like to kind of present today and kind of walk you guys through is kind of how I've done this. I've found these jobs for these freelancers and agencies for the past 7 years. And yeah, I want to thank some of you Indie Hall members because you filled out my survey, which is going to be really helpful and give us a lot to talk about today. So I appreciate that. Does that kind of answer what I do? I think so, right?
I think you did a great job.
Okay.
Absolutely, fantastic. And you said you've got some slides you want to present as well. You should be able to share your screen if you want to
Okay. Yeah, I'll go
flip
ahead and
over
start
to that.
sharing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, I created this. Okay, it's saying Zoom will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. So I might have to pop back out and come back in order to do my screen share.
Uh, got it. Imagine if we had to restart Indie Hall every time somebody wanted to put something on the screen. We'll give Rob a second, and we'll bring him back in just a moment. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. I will say, while Rob is on his way back in, I'm going to drop a note for those of you who have been to Indie Hall in the past or have been interested in it. One of the things that we did in the before times was a monthly, what we call open hall, sort of an open house on the first Friday of every month. Catherine, you got Rob bringing him back in? So we would invite folks to come over and try out co-working, spend a day, and sort of get a taste of what it's like to be a part of our community. And obviously, we didn't do that in April because we're closed. But we thought with the first Friday coming back up again, we wanted to take it for a spin. We've been doing a lot in terms of online community gatherings and experiences and things like that. So this Friday, we are hosting Open Hall at home, and I'll be sending a link out about that afterwards. There's some limited seats for that because it is kind of an experiment. We don't want anybody to be overwhelmed, either new attendees or our members. But if you're interested in seeing what the online Indie Hall experience is like throughout the rest of the week, on Friday there will be some open slots for that, and I'll be sending out a link to RSVP for that if you're interested in the follow-up to this. Rob, are you back?
I am back. Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome
Okay,
back.
cool.
I
Can you
was
see my
vamping.
screen?
I can see your screen.
I know. I was gone for like 5 seconds, and you're already like into a whole spiel. I was like, "Whoa, Alex is on it."
Cool. Well, welcome back. We can see your screen, and take it away.
Okay, so I'm gonna go in here. Yeah, I wanted to do some public service announcements because like you said, I do have some insights into the market or whatever. Clients are definitely skittish. This is something I've heard from my customers. Like, there's been a couple, clients freak out on them, either cancel their projects or, various different things that clients can kind of do when they're kind of stressed out. My recommendation is use a contract. Right now, it's really important to do that. There's a bunch of free ones online that I recommend. In particular, docsketch.com/contracts has some really good contracts, which are free to download. I think Bonsai has some. There's a good one that Paul Jarvis co-created somehow, which is called, I think, the Creative Class Contract. So those are a couple to do. IRS extended the filing deadline. You guys probably know this already, but in case somebody hasn't heard, July 15th is now the deadline to file. Looks like I got a little notification here. I don't think I'm going to be able to see the chat right now. So Alex, I don't know if there's any questions or anything that pop up as I'm going through, just let me know. Okay.
You're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and cutting costs. That's another recommendation I'm making right now for freelancers and agencies. I've posted 11 ideas for freelancers, how to save thousands of dollars on my blog right now. And I wrote that article because Alex, you asked me to do this. Got me starting to kind of brainstorm about some ways to save some money. Cool. So again, we did that Indie Hall survey, and it turns out 85% of Indie Hall members surveyed said they are medium confident about finding clients. So 3 out of 5, they kind of rated it. That's where their confidence level was at. And I think that's pretty typical for across kind of the freelance and agency spectrum. I think there's a tendency to kind of sit back and wait. And so as long as you're kind of getting new leads and it's kind of coming to you inbound, you feel fine. But there's also kind of that at the back of your mind, like, do I really know kind of how to go out and get something if I run into a dry spell, right? And that's really kind of the reason I started my business in general. I was a freelance designer, and I was having kind of the same sort of thoughts there. And I wish I could kind of pay somebody to do it for me, to find leads for me, or to kind of do some prospecting for me. And there wasn't really any of that out there. And I've talked to Alex about this numerous times. It was a product that came out of 30 by 500, which is Alex's online course about building products. Here's a quote from one of you guys. A 5 in that scale of 1 to 5 in confidence of finding clients, a 5 would mean that I would have a full pipeline and I would know exactly what steps to take when my clients had to pause due to the pandemic, or, you know, just at any time. If a client has to kind of go away, knowing exactly what to do to replace them and to kind of build your pipeline is kind of the 5, the 10 out of 10, the really no stress sort of dream scenario for most freelancers out there and most agencies. And that's exactly kind of what I'm kind of structuring this talk around. Is I really want to help you guys know exactly how to find new clients and kind of use data and the market to do that. And that's actually something similar, Alex, to 30 by 500. Is just kind of analyzing trends and market trends as opposed to trying to come up with this stuff for yourself, right? Like, it's a lot of pressure to think you have to like know how to position yourself intrinsically or internally. It's a lot easier to just react to kind of the external forces out there and what you observe from your clients. Okay, so this is a quote from one of the answers I got in the survey from one of the Indie Hall members that I absolutely loved. And I found it extremely fascinating. It says, "I hate networking and I don't do it. I find it fake, time consuming. My challenge is I don't get any email responses, even from people who will certainly benefit from my services, but are too busy to figure that out. One side of my business is producing event videos, the very same event organizers who are excited and stoked every time we get to have a conversation are hard to engage via email. Another difficulty is to get your clients to understand your value in their specific circumstance and have them remember you when they have a specific problem you can solve." Okay, so I'm going to break this down a little bit. I highlighted some of the parts that I found particularly interesting. Alex, what do you kind of notice about this this quote here?
Ooh, put me on the spot. So the big thing that stands out to me is it is all about you. I mean, not you, Rob, the person who wrote it.
Yeah.
You know, how I feel when I'm networking, how I feel when I don't get responses, things
Yeah,
like that.
it's
So,
very emotional based, right?
yeah, totally.
Emotion focused. I hate networking. I don't want to do it.
It's
It's
intense.
fake. It's very intense and kind of just intense. And like you said, like focused kind of inward, focused on like what you're feeling and stuff. Um, so yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about how to kind of turn this around in a lot of ways, and kind of how to change the mindset a little bit, tweak it here and there to use some of these feelings actually as a benefit and to kind of turn it around. So anyways, I did want to, the parts I highlighted was I hate networking, which I thought was just a very emotional, very honest, and I really appreciated how honest this was. I don't get any email responses. We're going to talk about how to kind of turn that around as well. And then the other part I thought was really interesting was, but my services are something people will certainly benefit from, but they are too busy to figure that out. And so I thought that was interesting because she kind of answered her own question, like, why is she not getting email responses? Because clients are too busy to figure out how her services will benefit them. And so, like you said, flipping this around from being inward focused and expecting clients to figure out how you are going to benefit them, and turning that around and saying, it's my turn, it's my job to kind of help them figure it out, or so make it so that they don't even have to figure it out, and I can just kind of tell them, or expect I'll figure it out for them, right? That's kind of what you're trying to do. And so I'll continue here. Yeah, okay, so they're stoked every time we have a conversation, yet they are hard to engage via email. Something I've found often in my research is some clients, like different clients, are prefer different sort of communication styles. Maybe some clients would prefer a phone call in a lot of situations versus email. And it's kind of up to you as a freelancer to tune that communication to the specific clients. If they're stoked every time you talk to them via phone call, it's probably a good idea to use that and to call them up, as opposed to, if you're not hearing back over email, you can kind of tweak that. Let's see, how am I on time? I've got a ton of stuff to get into, so I don't want to go too slow here. And then, yeah, at the bottom, another difficulty is getting them to understand your value. Same sort of thing. Have them remember you whenever they have a specific problem you can solve. You're kind of putting all of the onus on the client there. Have them remember you when they have a specific problem, as opposed to reaching out to them when you think they might have a problem. That's really kind of a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, is being a little bit more proactive in a way that's not focused on you, that maybe doesn't feel sleazy or salesy. It's really focused around helping the client. And so this second quote was from a different member, and it's actually quite similar to the first one, except it's going to be, it kind of has that switch. She kind of made that switch and approached it slightly differently. So it says, I recently sent out an email to 100 people I had in my contact list. They were personal email contacts and connections. And I told them that I was available for work as a full-time independent creative and the kind of work I could do for them. That email led to 3 immediate leads, one of which turned into a real project I wanted, and 2 conversations, catching up chats that became work opportunities within the next 2 months. It was very unlike my instinct to send a mass email like that, but it worked and helped boost me through my first few months as a full-time freelancer. So this is an awesome story, right? And I think the part that I really, really liked, and I liked it as a comparison to that last quote, was she was feeling a lot of the very same emotions. She says it was very unlike my instinct to send a mass email like that. In other words, maybe she hates networking. Maybe she doesn't want to do it. Maybe she finds it fake and time consuming, but she did it anyway, and it resulted in work for her, right? And it resulted in not just an immediate project lined up, but some conversations that can continue to line up work in the coming months. So if you're sort of in this group where you don't really like marketing, you find it kind of fake or time consuming, this quote here I think is kind of helpful, right? For seeing that you can still do it anyway. You can push past that kind of instinct and see if it works. Yeah, and this is that part. It was unlike my instinct, but it worked, right? So here are a couple more quotes from some of the survey responses we got, and I want you to think about like this hack, turning you-focused statements into them-focused statements. So, and when I say them, I mean clients. So instead of talking about yourself, how can you tweak that into thinking about the client first? So I feel so weird doing X right now, like reaching out to clients or following up, but clients are in need, right? your clients are probably experiencing a lot of difficulties right now. Your prospective clients probably need your help right now. If you can kind of tap into that thought, it makes reaching out a lot less awkward and a lot less weird to kind of try to do, because you're doing it in service of them. And I bet if you looked at like the email that this person sent out, you wouldn't have thought, oh, it's awkward, it's weird that she sent this email out. You would probably think this she's reaching out because she can help, and this is actually a great service that she's providing. Here's another quote from one of your guys' answers was, no one knows they can call a venue specialist to help them find a venue. So she's a venue specialist, and yeah, but she's realizing that, like, she calls herself a venue specialist, but nobody really uses that term. So how do you turn that around? I would say, but clients are looking for X, so I'll meet them there. So again, reacting kind of to what the market really is saying, and putting aside what you kind of want to be called yourself, and reacting instead to what clients are already doing in the market. Yeah. Alex, do you have any notes you want to throw in here about this so far?
No, man, this is really good stuff. I think that
Cool.
the meta here is extra critical and contextual with the environment we're in right now, because
Mm-hmm.
when bad things happen in your business, whether it's, a project ends and you don't know where the next one's going to come from, or a contract gets canceled or deferred or whatever it is, it is really easy to become inward focused. In fact, I'd say
Yeah.
it's natural, it's normal. If that's what happens, you're not wrong. That's exactly what we're designed to do. But the thing to remember is that that's happening for potential clients out there as well. And so that there are people out there that are going through their own challenges. The way I always think about it is the easiest way to get out of your own head is to get into somebody else's head. And that's exactly what you're demonstrating here.
That's
It's great.
awesome. Cool. That's an awesome quote. And yeah, I totally agree. This last one, it says, I sent a few cold emails, but no responses, right? We could switch that to say, but these clients are busy. I'll make their lives easier by following up. Same sort of thing. We're switching it out to focus on them, right? And we're going to get into some stats on the whole COVID situation that I've kind of seen in terms of the freelance market, as well as some stats that are from other companies' surveys and research they've done, to kind of help us see through some of the issues in our own head in a lot of ways. So this is one survey. I think it was from Vox, and it was actually looking at transcripts for public companies, and it just shows a huge spike ever since kind of this whole COVID stuff happened, in people talking about working from home. And so if that's any indication, companies are getting a lot more comfortable with remote work. So that's actually a good sign, right, for the freelance community. One of the top reasons I think freelancers find one of the top reasons companies don't hire freelancers oftentimes is because they're not comfortable with that remote setup. This is another bit of data from, I think this one was also a Vox, and it's just comparing March 2019 to March 2020, and it shows a lot of areas are the job hiring is down. I think this is job posts, the number of job posts, but there's also some areas here that it's kind of gone up, right, on the right side. So I don't know if you can see it, might be a little too small for you. These areas are legal, corporate services, software and IT services, and public safety. So that helps somewhat if you can kind of quickly tweak your services to target maybe for the next few months some of these areas, but it doesn't really help a ton in the left side, right? If you're kind of really focused in on, let's say, recreation and travel right now, it's obviously it's going to be difficult. But we're going to walk through some ways that even in those sort of areas, you can kind of still do some changes. So some more stats for you. Alex, you mentioned that like you really wanted some stats, so I did look around a little bit here. Oh, there was one more. 83% of U.S. CEOs are looking to improve cost efficiency right now. One of the ways that they do that is, and it was mentioned in the survey as well, is using independent professionals and using kind of freelancers, right? So, and yeah, 76% plan to increase their use of independent professionals according to Top Tile. It's a repeat slide. And this is 56% of freelance product design jobs, an increase of 56% of jobs posted in April from March. That's my own data that I've collected, just finding these kind of referrals for my newsletter. We've seen a large increase this month in new posts. So let's walk through some steps. I do want to walk you through exactly how I find the clients. So I'm going to save that for the end, just because that way I can share kind of my screen and we can walk through the examples. But let's first get into how to contact these. Just a few tips I've picked up through the years. How to contact either job posts or clients, or even current clients via email, to make sure you maximize kind of your response rate. So the number one thing I've noticed is a ton of freelancers and agencies don't use a CRM. And what a CRM will do is it'll help you follow up with clients and make sure nothing slips through the cracks. So an inbox is often one of the easiest ways to just end up not following up, or losing track of like, oh, this client wanted me to follow up. He's not ready yet, but he said in 3 months maybe. A CRM will kind of solve that, and I recommend Pipedrive. I recommend, if you're reaching out to a client about a project that they posted or about a job, I recommend you send one portfolio piece that is optimized to kind of what they're looking for. So something you think is the most relevant piece in your portfolio, as opposed to sending a link to every one of your case studies, every one of your portfolios. You're basically, and this is something I do also on the newsletter, is I help these companies find and match freelancers. And every single time we post a job and that I'm helping hire with, people just send me like every single project in their portfolio. They send me a generic link to their portfolio. And what it does is it gives me like an extra 10 seconds or 20 seconds, or sometimes even longer, per applicant to kind of look through their site and click on the portfolio that I think is most relevant, right? And oftentimes maybe I'm not picking the right one. So kind of eliminating that chore and just linking directly to the one portfolio piece, or talking about in your email one example that you have of a relevant project, has been really helpful for kind of identifying matches quickly. And lastly, remove "let me know" from your emails. So I was very guilty of this when I was freelancing. I think 99% of my emails ended with some variation of like, "let me know what you think. Let me know when I can get back to you. Let me know," like, and everything, right? So what "let me know" is saying is, it's saying I'm not capable of making the decision of what should happen at the end, what should happen next. So I'm going to offboard that decision onto the client and onto you, and you deal with it, you know. So that's 3 quick tips for the "let me know." I recommend switching that out and saying something like, "Here's 3 options," or "Here's what I think we should do. Does that sound good?" Like, if a good rule of thumb is if a client can respond, "Sounds good," to your email, you're on the right track. You're being prescriptive enough in your emails to kind of make it easy for them to reply. It's a lot easier for a client to reply with a thumbs up or a "sounds good," and have you kind of send them more information again, than it is for them to say, "Oh, okay, let me look at my schedule and find a time," and and let me look through your work and let you know if you're a fit for this project. And the number one way to improve response rate is to follow up. Here, this is a very simple follow-up sequence that I recommend for almost every single freelancer out there. 1 week after you apply, send your first follow-up if you don't hear. You should expect that you're not going to hear back from one single email. You should almost always account for that and really plan for it with a simple follow-up sequence like this. 1 week after you apply, say, excited to hear more about the opportunity. Do you have a time frame for when you'd like to follow up to learn, like me to follow up to learn more? Again, a really simple yes or no question. They can say, yeah, follow up, or no, don't follow up, or whatever. You're just making it very simple to reply to this email. And then there's 3 more variations of similar types of follow-up emails you can send. I would space them out at least 7 to 10 days. 7 to 10 days isn't going to bug anybody. That's enough time for people to respond. And yeah, you're not being overly pushy or anything. So here's a couple more. I'll read them. The second one is checking back in on the position. Is there an update on this job or project? The third one would be, haven't heard back from you on this. Is this still something you're looking to do? If not, that's fine. Just reply and let me know. Number 4 is, since I haven't heard back from you on this, I'm going to assume your priorities have changed. And so this one is the end of the sequence, right? And it's actually an email that I got from Kurt Elster from themagicemail.com. And he calls it the magic email because it has this insane quality about it that gets clients to respond. So it seems like a little bit like brash or short, and it's really designed that way to make a client be like, okay, well, feel that loss aversion here. Say, oh, I really should follow up on this project. I really should get started on this project. Let me respond to this person. And it's also, it's almost like self-care. I feel like sending this last email and just closing it out for yourself, it reduces kind of your cognitive load. And you can just kind of, okay, close that one and move on to the next one. There's not a bunch of balls up in the air anymore. It's just kind of for your own mental clarity as well. And you're kind of giving them like this opportunity. You're saying, look, I'm assuming your priorities have changed. And so I'm going to stop following up. You're really, it's almost providing a service for both of you in that way. Okay, so that was kind of the quick, I know I'm going really fast, but like I said, there is a ton of stuff that I want to get to. But the next question is probably, how do you find clients? I looked at a couple of your one-line business descriptions that you have, and one of them was a video content editor, and what I did was I spent like 5 or 10 minutes kind of using the process that I've developed for my referral newsletter to look for these look for some projects in the video editing sort of space. And here were just a few that I kind of found. This one on the left is for Discovery Education. It was somebody who posted about a week ago. It was an RFP, and they were looking for a video editor to do some work for them. And what I really like about LinkedIn in this way is that they usually include email addresses and deadlines, and you can upload PDFs there as well. So, and actually the number one thing on LinkedIn that I really like is that you can actually message the decision makers, oftentimes, directly on the platform, which is awesome. You can add them and follow up with them there via their own sort of their own profile and in your own inbox there. And these were just a couple I found quickly to kind of illustrate that there are people hiring out there. This one on the right, Josh Jensen, he was hiring actually as a result of COVID. He was hiring a video production company to produce these virtual admitted students day program. So this is an example of how you could kind of observe the market a little bit and maybe reach out to other companies who are in a similar position. So he's working for Whitman College, who had to quickly create a bunch of video content because they're no longer in person. You could reach out to either similar people or similar colleges, or start kind of developing a position that's kind of based on this data that you're collecting. And below it is kind of the follow-up to it. He's saying, well, wow, an adrenaline high after successfully completing these first live events for Whitman College. So he's put out this RFP on LinkedIn, heard back from somebody within 4 weeks, and is extremely happy about the results, which is just another testament to kind of reaching out and proposing, as opposed to kind of sitting back, and you're going to be providing more of a service for people. And yeah, data-driven prospecting is kind of the topic here. So the next thing we're going to do is jump into how to do this exactly. So I'm going to switch over to Safari, and I'll show you how we find these clients in a few different ways. So all good, right, Alex? You can see my screen now? Still, you can see the Safari window?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, cool. So one of the first things I wanted to mention was actually Slack. As you guys know, there's a ton of like Slack communities, online communities. I'm pretty sure Indie Hall has a Slack chat, right?
Yes, we do.
Cool. So what you can do is actually look up Slack communities in your niche. So if you're a video content editor, you can search video content Slack communities in Google, and you can find Ahrefs. Looks like they've published an article with a bunch of different Slack communities that you can join. And usually it's just like a quick, you fill it out quickly, and you get a response in your email like, oh, here's your invite in Slack. And the reason I recommend Slack often for communities and for finding clients is they almost always, these communities have channels specifically dedicated to sending referrals. Back in the old days, like like back in the golden age, people used to use like Twitter for referrals, and maybe posting on Facebook and stuff. Now people kind of go to Slack because it's a little bit more private. It's a little bit more intimate. I think I pulled up something like 90% of Fortune 100 companies are on Slack already. They pay for Slack. Or maybe it's less than that. That might be an exaggeration. I think it's like 60%. So they're already here. They're already doing this. You're not having to kind of go in and kind of change behavior in order to find clients. One that I strongly recommend is Rand's Leadership Slack. This has an insane amount of really cool companies in here. They have a channel called Consulting Gigs, which people are posting pretty regularly to about new opportunities. And you can just kind of follow up with these people and say, hey, I'm a Ruby on Rails developer. If I can't help you with this gig, I can definitely refer you to somebody. And it's really just a way to kind of build up reciprocity when you're sending out referrals. People kind of send them back to you. So that's kind of one way to find these gigs. You can also search these Slack communities for your sort of type of gig. So video content, and you can limit it to just that channel here. And this one doesn't look like it came up with any, but if you guys know better what your specific way to name it is. Yeah, and so there was another thing I wanted to mention here in Slack that you can do is once you add a bunch of these communities, it's going to get overwhelming. And to reduce that, I would recommend going to the channels that, well, first of all, only signing up to the channels that are relevant to you. So if you're a video content person, you might search video. You might find there's a couple channels that have video. Like I said, there's that Consulting Gigs channel, which is people just sharing stuff. You'll probably want to add stuff like that. So look for the channels that are most relevant and where people are sharing referrals. And then you can mute everything else. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can mute channels by going here and clicking mute in the settings. So that way, yeah, you'll have like 20 different communities here, but you'll only get these red notifications when it's actually a referral that's being shared and you want to check it out. The other thing you can do is go here to just your preferences and actually set up keywords so that if somebody's actually only saying freelance designer, you'll get that notification. So not only is it just when referrals are getting shared, it's when your specific referral for you is getting shared. And I've seen Slack be super effective. I think it's because it's kind of new and people really like the intimateness. Like you feel like you're really talking to somebody. It's not ruined by marketers yet or cold emails and spammy pitches. So this is one place that I would recommend starting. Look for as many Slack communities as you can find that are kind of in your niche that have some clients. I wanted to show you something cool. This is something I did the other day here in the Slack community. There's this tab called People. And if, for example, if you were thinking like, oh, I want to reach out to this company, maybe it's Dropbox, and I want to see if there's anybody here that works at Dropbox. They have kind of a listing here of all these people that actually work at Dropbox. There might even be people who you know already that you can kind of reach out to. So I thought that was a cool feature also to show. Okay, so again, I'm going really fast, but we don't have too much time. The next one is an RSS reader. So this is one of the main ways I find clients for the newsletter. I put in a bunch of product design job boards in here. And the reason I like Feedbin, and the way you add, sorry, I'm all over the place. The way you add a feed is you go here to add and you can type in like, we work remotely. You type in a URL and it'll actually find their RSS feed, and then you can monitor every single remote job posted on We Work Remotely all in one place. And again, you can kind of just search on Google for job boards related to your specific niche. So job boards, video content might be one way to turn up some job boards that have kind of the gigs you're looking for. You would go in, add all of them here into Feedbin, and then you have thousands of opportunities kind of at your fingertips. But I know that also probably sounds like a lot of work to go through it. So the reason I recommend Feedbin is you can set up actions, which are just basically rules. Again, kind of saying like basically looking for certain keywords, looking for only freelance gigs as opposed to also full-time. So as you can see, I have like a ton of different rules set up here. And basically all they're really doing is kind of filtering out the full-time stuff and creating a starred feed for me that I know has only the most relevant stuff to me. So this is kind of the washed sort of jobs that have kind of gone through my filters and my rules. And I know that these are going to be freelance design gigs that are showing up here. So that was another quick rundown of Feedbin. I do want to mention, like, a lot of this stuff I'm going by really quickly because there's a ton here, but you feel free to reach out to me at robert@folio.me if you have any questions as you're kind of going through this. I'd love to help you figure out how to set it up for yourself. Another thing I wanted to mention is just ask people you respect what Slack communities they're a part of. So I reached out to Kurt Elster, who does Shopify consulting. I asked him, what are some good Shopify Slack communities? He sent me this one, partnerleague.net. So this is a great one. If you do Shopify, you go in, you sign up, you join the Slack community. Suddenly there's hundreds, if not thousands of clients there that are sharing opportunities and new opportunities. So that was something else I wanted to mention. Okay, so only a couple more here that I'm going to dive into, and then we can do the Q&A. LinkedIn, the way that I found some of those gigs that I showed you in the keynote is I actually just use their search. So you can do RFP, brand design, for example. There were some branding designers that showed up. And you want to switch this, make sure you switch to content as opposed to searching just like people and stuff like that. That'll be the default. And you can search by latest. And then just go through here, and this is exactly kind of how I found those RFPs that I showed you earlier. Let's see if we can find one here. Yeah, there's usually a few. We'll see. And you can kind of tweak the search to seeking designers, seeking freelancers, stuff like that. That's kind of how you can surface a ton of different opportunities. Here's one: urgent 70 to 90K web design project starting in a couple days, and link to their RFP. Okay, so that's how I would use LinkedIn. I'm going to switch over to Google now and show you one more way to find some more gigs here. A lot of people don't know that with Google, you can do search parameters, which is also really great for helping you find gigs. So I'll just do brand design RFP. This is just a generic search. I'll go to tools, switch to past month, so that's only things that have been posted recently, and I'll switch this to file type PDF. And so suddenly, what we're going to see is like direct links to RFPs that have been posted with, in the last month, that are actual PDFs and that are actively soliciting responses. So this is another great way to do it. I recommend Google because it's impossible for you to monitor every single person's website, but Google kind of does it for you. There's, obviously it indexes millions and millions of websites. So it's just a great way to kind of access all these different sites all at once. I've used it to monitor job board software. So like Workable is one of these. They actually create a URL for every client that creates a job board with Workable. So you can search every single job posted on the entire Workable platform, for example, and search for just the freelance stuff or just the agency stuff that's been posted on that. So that's just another tip. And the way you would do something like that would be like site workable.com. And then that way you're kind of going through, and as you can see, there's a lot of different options for it, but setting this all up, I don't want to overwhelm you guys, so I'm going to turn it over to questions. I'm thinking of preparing also maybe a PDF that I can give to Alex that has a lot of this info so that you guys don't have to kind of go back and rewatch this whole thing. But yeah, those were some of the tips that I wanted to walk you guys through. I'll switch back over to Alex and to Zoom now. What do you think, Alex?
This is great, man. Thank you so much. I was just about to ask, it would be awesome to maybe have even just a quick collection of, your feed bin rules and maybe a couple of those other keywords and things like that that people
Definitely.
can, know what to plug into. And what I'm taking away here is some of this does take a little bit of experimentation and being willing to sort of search around, but the goal of having the right terms is narrowing it down to things that are more likely. And so even if you just spend 15 or 20 minutes a day plugging these search terms in, that you're going to start seeing things come up, and
Yeah,
then basically treat every prospect as an at bat, as an opportunity to improve your
exactly.
outreach and things like that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do with like the RFPs, or that I recommend people do with these RFPs, you're going to be finding tons and tons of job posts and tons of RFPs going through this process. What you can do is you can actually pull out specific requests. So what pains are they talking about in their RFPs? What solutions are they seeking? Kind of how are they describing that stuff? And that's the stuff you want to put on your website. That's the stuff that will be more effective at selling your services, because you're just pulling it from their own heads. And something I learned from you and Amy a long time ago.
I'll add to that, and one of the things you brought up earlier is sort of using things that you find as clues for searching what I call laterally. So you
Right.
find somebody posting. The example you gave was the guy who's doing videos as response to some COVID response within the organization.
Yeah.
That means you can use those keywords, those terms, the way they're describing the problem that they want to solve in your communication. But you can also take those terms and plug them back up into the search and say,
Yep.
I wonder if anybody else is looking for or talking about the same problem or angle and things like that. So I think that's the key here is there's that finding an example of one person who's looking for help means there's a pretty good chance that there's other people like them, and you can use all these same search techniques to sort of recycle all of that through. We do have a question from earlier that you touched on a little bit from Zave. Zave said, I was asking about, what are the elements of an email that's warm and engaging and more about the client and less about you?
Yeah.
Um,
So one of the things I notice is again kind of the I focus language in a lot of cold emails. Hi, I'm a freelancer. Here's my portfolio. I've worked with these companies. I've done this. Um, I'd love to chat with you, right? So it's fine to write that first sort of draft out. What I would do is then look everywhere that you're putting I and switch that out for a you. So you would email them and maybe you're saying, hi, client, I saw you are looking for blah, 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 because it looks like you guys need these things. Um, your job post mentioned XYZ. Uh, yeah. And so some, what are sometimes you are actually, so it's kind of flipping it and saying, you, I'm available at this time. Would that work for you? Or kind of, yeah, just kind of removing as much work as you can from the email for the client and having them kind of, yeah, just make it as simple as possible for them to reply to you.
yeah.
Those are some tips for kind of making it warmer and more engaging. I've found that like often if somebody emails me and talks about me, that's pretty damn engaging for me. Like I love to talk about myself. I love to hear about myself, and so that's kind of a hack for that. Um,
You can even, I would say, you could even riff a little bit and say if you're searching, if you found them on LinkedIn, you can point to maybe, if you're responding to an RFP, I would go back into that individual's thing, see, did they post any articles, any other resources, and be like, hey, I was doing a little bit of research and I saw that you were just talking about this. We have that in common, or I know something about that. And again, looking for an opportunity for you to talk about something that they've already demonstrated that they're interested in, that they care about, is a great way to sort of warm that up and make that connection and show that you sent an email that is clearly just for them versus something that went to absolutely everybody.
yeah, yeah. You want the email to only be possibly sent to one person as opposed to just a generic email that says, "Hi, I'm a freelancer. Do you want to hire me?" That could be sent to anybody.
There's another great question in the chat, Rob,
Hmm.
about that graph that you posted earlier about the industries that have sort of tanked versus ones that are
Yeah.
still hiring. One of the ones that's still hiring is corporate services. What do you think is sort of inside of corporate services? Do you have a sense of what that might be?
No, I don't.
I bet we can look it up. um, my hunch I mean, honestly, I think a lot of corporate services are a lot of the things that we do. That's, marketing, communications, PR, press releases. Think about like what are the problems that a company that is still operating needs, right? And what do they need now? So I'm imagining like HR, right? What is HR struggling with in having had their company turned completely upside down? Is there some way for you to help the HR department in a corporate setting solve a problem they're dealing with using the skills that you have? In which case, I would go digging around. Well, what problems are HR people talking about right now, and
Mm.
thinking, what can I do to help here?
Yeah, a lot of this is just kind of reacting to data and what's actually happening as opposed to kind of trying to come up with it all by yourself, right?
One last thing. I've got another good question here. What types of roles do businesses need now? For in terms of like particular. The example here is like an Asana consultant, right? So like, are there roles that maybe didn't exist
Yeah.
before, or there's even more demand for now because of the environment we're in?
I think one of the roles that has really expanded right now is the ability to handle their processes online. So whether it's, a lot of companies weren't prepared for having to do everything not in person. So either over the internet or kind of quickly adjusting to this new reality of like we can't interact anymore. And so that's one area that I've seen is like pretty ripe right now, um, helping companies in a huge amount of ways. Right there's the video aspect of it, video content aspect of it. There's software to help automate sort of that process, but just kind of helping, thinking about how you can help with your skills, create value in terms of switching companies over to the way they were doing things before to this new way, and during this time, how they can kind of adjust their business. So for some people, that if you're a developer, that might mean helping a company process payments, for example. Maybe they're used to doing everything in person. Now it has to switch to online, right? So those are some examples, but I think that's a broad sort of trend that I've seen with COVID related industries.
I would also turn the question around a little bit and say, the companies aren't necessarily hiring for roles. They may not know what they need, but they know that they
Mm-hmm.
have a problem. So again, digging into companies that you have connections into or you've built relationships with and saying, well, what are they talking about? What are their leadership talking about? What are their employees talking about on these various platforms? And then thinking to yourself, wait, I know a way to do that. Or also, you don't need to be an expert in this. You just need to know a little bit more than they do, right? You need to have a little more experience than they do, or the willingness to go do the research and say, I figured out the best practice. Let me show you what I learned, right? Because you learning it on their behalf is saving them time, potentially money, potentially challenges of doing it incorrectly the first time. Which I
Right.
can give a little bit of also a plug for actually next week's session, since I know we're at the top of the hour and folks might need to leave. Next week's session is working with an instructional designer who helps people take the skills they have and turn them into educational material,
Yeah.
educational content, so that you can either host webinars or write blog posts or whatever it is. We talk about how do you help people so that you can earn their trust and offer them services. That's where the dots start getting connected. And Janelle Allen will be joining us on next week's session to help you identify how you can translate some of the skills you have into educational resources, which I think helps start leading you in a path, more like you're asking Lisa, where it might not be a role that they're interested in, but there's a problem they care about. And if you can help them solve a problem, then it doesn't matter what the role is, so long as you're the one that they believe can help them.
Yeah. Cool. I
Any
love
any
Janelle's
sort of
approach.
final thoughts from you today, Rob?
Yeah, I will say, hopefully the some of what I walked through today will help kind of take you from a place of like there's no opportunities right now. Hopefully it doesn't take you all the way to like this is an overwhelming amount of opportunities, and more to like, okay, there are things possible right now. There are jobs getting posted. There are RFPs out there. There are these places that clients are hanging out and still kind of looking for referrals. It just kind of takes pick one or two of these. Like you might, maybe for you it might be LinkedIn. Maybe another person more comfortable doing this Slack method. Just pick one and just kind of ease yourself into it a little bit. That's kind of, I think, what my takeaway would be. If you're not doing anything right now, don't try to like create the perfect process right now. It took me, years to do all of these things constantly. So that's kind of my takeaway is, at least hopefully this helped you guys see that there are still jobs getting posted, and kind of remove some of the doubt about like it's possible to land work right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rob. This was great. Appreciate you taking the time, put together this information, share. As you said, it's not necessarily your secret sauce, but you've clearly put a lot of work into this and have a lot of practice. So I'm glad that we'll be able to share both the recording as well as, like I said, we'll follow up with the tips, and maybe we can get the slides from you as well to share afterwards. So thank you. Really appreciate you being here. Anyone wants to check out, Rob's got also an awesome archive of blog posts that are very much geared towards the freelance community, at Folio. That's FOLYO.me. And there's a little blog link up in the top right corner. I also linked that in the chat. But check Rob's stuff out. It's great. He's great. Thanks for being here, Rob. And like I said before, we'll be back here next Tuesday. I'll follow up with an email with some recap, some notes, some of these additional resources from Rob. And as always, we're interested in how we can keep making these sessions better for you. So while we do have the next couple of weeks lined up, we've got next week's how to turn your skills into education to help you find clients and create products. Also working on lining up a presenter to help us talk about positioning ourselves or possibly even repositioning ourselves, as some of us may need to be doing, selling the things we're good at to new people. That'll be coming up in 2 weeks, and more to come. So thanks everyone for taking some time out of your day. Thanks again, Rob. Thanks, Catherine, for helping behind the scenes as always. And we will see you all on the internet. Stay safe out there, everybody. Bye bye.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well done.